continued challenge. As his supporters rally in the nation's capital, President Donald Trump refuses to concede the election, while Joe Biden discusses ideas for the economy. We're at the White House. Signs of progress. Why an announcement about a vaccine is providing hope in the fight against the coronavirus. Gathering of bishops. What's on the agenda on the first day of the USCCB General Assembly. And Catholics in Scandinavia. A closer look at the birthplace of Christianity in Norway. On EWTN News Nightly for Monday, November 16th, 2020. Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. Tonight, President Donald Trump is blaming, quote, radical left Democrats and, quote, the fake news media for trying to steal the election while still saying that he won the presidential race. And as the president trumpets stock market gains on new vaccine news, presumptive President-elect Joe Biden is moving forward with his own speech about the economy. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
President Donald Trump continues to strongly dispute the election results, fighting back on several fronts and declaring in a tweet today, I won the election. In Georgia, a massive multi-million ballot hand recount is underway.
And proud to report that continue to not see any sort of systemic issues or fraud or improprieties poke their head up, but continue to work hard and making sure that we continue to earn the trust of 11 million Georgians in this election process.
But President Donald Trump is not impressed, writing, Georgia won't let us look at the all-important signature match. Without that, the recount is meaningless. Open up unconstitutional consent decree now. Georgia's Republican lieutenant governor also says the letter of the law is being followed.
I've said this several times. Just because the guy I voted for isn't in the lead right now doesn't change my job description.
The Trump campaign is also pursuing its lawsuit in Pennsylvania. A hearing set for tomorrow in the case. The suit tries to block Pennsylvania from certifying a victory in that state for presumptive President-elect Joe Biden. Meantime, over the weekend, a massive crowd of President Trump's supporters rallied in the nation's capital. The president waving to them from his motorcade. And today, presumptive President-elect Joe Biden spoke in Delaware about the economy.
Right now, Congress should come together and pass a COVID relief package like the HEROES Act that the House passed 6 months ago. Once we shut down the virus and deliver economic relief to workers and businesses, then we can start to build back better than before.
At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Joining me now to offer his perspective is John Gizzi, chief political columnist and White House correspondent for Newsmax. John, welcome back. Always great to see you. You've covered the White House across several administrations. Thank you, John. I want to get your take from a historical view. What are your thoughts, John, on where we are right now post-election?
This was an historic election, and Theodore White, author of The Making of the President series, once said it best about the 1968 election. It violently rejected the results of 4 years before, but it did so by such a close margin that the incoming president and his party could not claim a mandate. So it is today. The results did reject the outcome of 2016 narrowly and in results that are being disputed. In addition, Republicans held the Senate and made gains in the House of Representatives. In fact, the party division between the House is the closest it's been since 1958. This portends argument, invective, and a very stormy term ahead for the incoming president.
John, two of the serious challenges facing the nation at this moment, as you know, are the coronavirus pandemic and rebuilding the economy. That said, what type of impact do you think that could have on the progress on those fronts the longer the transition briefings are delayed between the Trump administration and that of presumptive President-elect Joe Biden?
Well, certainly the market has been getting a boost as reports about a vaccine continue to come out and look like something will be presented for FDA approval sooner rather than later. However, the market could go down if there is uncertainty about transition and if it's going to be delayed. Historically, the United States has always had smooth transitions, the exceptions to that being very few and far between in our history. So this would be almost unprecedented in modern times, and it could affect the market in a very negative way. Otherwise, when the Electoral College certifies the winner on December 14th, one would presume that the normal transition of power occurs, albeit a little late, and any hiccups in the market would be resolved by January when the president takes the oath of office.
John, before we let you go, having covered many White House transitions, as we already mentioned, what are your observations on the political polarization in the country right now and its significance?
Well, again, I go back to 1968 and the aftermath of it. The United States was divided over the Vietnam War and racial strife. Today, as you mentioned, we have a very lethal pandemic, economic uncertainty ahead, widespread racial tension, and a new president who would face a divided Senate and spirited opposition in the House of Representatives. So I see ahead a lot of invective, and I hate to say it, semper idem, more of the same.
John, wondering, looking forward, how can we get through this? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I do think that Vice President Biden has said in the past he works with people who disagree with him. And I think that if he reaches out to Majority Leader McConnell, with whom he has a good relationship as a former Senate colleague, and Leader McCarthy in the House, he might be able to get something done. But his problem is that he has the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez being emblematic of it, that he has to defer to on many issues. That's going to be a problem for him. It is not a time when we used to have some moderate and conservative Democrats and centrist Republicans. It was said that there wasn't a dime's worth of difference between the parties. Well, I'd say there's probably a good silver dollar and more difference between the parties. That will be the problem for the president who tries to compromise, if indeed he does try to reach compromises.
Well, John, we always appreciate you coming on and offering your analysis. John Gizzi, chief political columnist and White House correspondent for Newsmax. Thanks again, John.
Thank you.
Well, Georgia voters are already preparing to go to the polls again. In 50 days, the Peach State will decide for America which political party controls the U.S. Senate. And now politicians on both sides are working to drum up support for their candidates to get voters to the polls. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports. Eric?
That's right, Tracy. The clock is ticking to January 5th, and you better believe that that date is circled on the calendars in many Senate offices up here on Capitol Hill. Everybody is going to be watching that date. That's the date that Senators Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, both Republicans, are going to want Georgians to re-elect them to the Senate. But Democratic candidates believe that the tide has turned and they can win. Greeted by cheers Sunday in Cobb County, Georgia, Democratic candidates for Senate John Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock teaming up to appeal to voters.
Let's hear it for my brother from another mother, John Ossoff.
They say they're in a very strong position to win.
The fact is there were 21 people in my race, 21. And there were 10 people with a D next to their name. And because the names were listed alphabetically, and my name is Warnock, I was the person next to the last person on the list. And I finished first, handily.
The Democratic Party is using its fundraising arm to turn Georgia blue. Since 2005, Georgia voters have sent Republicans to the U.S. Senate, and the Republican National Committee is investing at least $20 million to keep that streak alive.
I think Georgia is critical to keep America on a center-right track. I don't think Americans want to go in the direction of socialism.
And with support from GOP colleagues, the Republican incumbents are hitting the trail.
We are all in this together to get this done. But make no mistake, we are the firewall, not just for the U.S. Senate, but the future of our country.
Working to stay in the minds of voters so they go to the polls on January 5th.
We are standing up for you. But look, we need you to be our voice. So please get involved, chip in, get your friends and family in, and vote early.
Both parties know it's all going to come down to voter turnout. Now, by the way, the last time that Georgia had a runoff election was in 2008. That's when a Republican won. So both Senators Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue are hoping that lightning will strike twice. Tracy?
Okay, thank you so much, Eric. Correspondent Eric Rosales reporting from Capitol Hill tonight. Moderna is announcing that its COVID-19 vaccine is proving to be highly effective. In a major trial, doctors say any vaccine will first be made available to hospital workers.
We have to get it for healthcare workers first and first responders, the people who, if they get it, not only themselves go down and can't take care of the public, but also can pass it on to other people. And so really phasing out how we get it to healthcare workers and then to high-risk people and then to the public is the path forward.
The announcement from Moderna that its vaccine is 94.5% effective comes as the virus is surging in the United States and around the world. SpaceX launches the first ever crew rotation flight of a U.S. commercial spacecraft to the International Space Station.
3, 2, 1.
It's carrying 4 astronauts, 3 from NASA and 1 from Japan's space agency, and is arriving at the ISS later tonight. The flight marks the first time that a private company designed, developed, and tested a new spacecraft. Coming up, an update on the first day of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops' Fall General Assembly, this year going virtual. Tonight, the annual fall meeting for U.S. Catholic bishops is in full swing, meeting virtually for the first time this year due to COVID concerns. The USCCB General Assembly elected chairmen for various committees and discussed the bombshell Vatican report on Theodore McCarrick. Correspondent Mark Irons joins us now with more. Mark?
Tracy, in the wake of that McCarrick report, a message for the victims of clergy abuse from the president of the USCCB, Archbishop Jose Gomez, who is calling for the elimination of the scourge of abuse from the church.
I would like us to pause to remember all our brothers and sisters who are victims survivors of clergy sexual abuse. In light of the Holy See's report on Theodore McCarrick, we again want to express our deep sorrow and pray that they might find healing and hope. Let us also renew our commitment today to protecting children and vulnerable adults.
The bishops had an extended discussion on the findings of the McCarrick report, and were also scheduled to receive an update from the National Review Board on practices and policies on the prevention of sexual abuse. There are other challenges facing the church. Today, the bishops heard an address from the Vatican ambassador to the U.S., Apostolic Nuncio Archbishop Christophe Pierre.
As an Episcopal Conference, you are acutely aware of the challenges and have addressed them, including migration, racism, abortion. But how could the response be more effective? What the Holy Father suggests is moving from seeing someone as a neighbor to viewing them as a brother or sister.
Also tonight, the results are in after the bishops cast their votes via mail-in ballots. Today, the USCCB announced the chairs of various committees. Monsignor Jeffrey Burrill is named General Secretary-elect for the USCCB. Archbishop of New York, Cardinal Timothy Dolan, will be the new chairman for religious liberty, and the chair-elect to the Committee on Pro-Life Activities is Archbishop of Baltimore, William Lori. And tomorrow, the bishops will announce results from voting on 3 action items. Those include the approval of a strategic plan for the USCCB for the next 3 years, the reauthorization of an ad hoc committee against racism, and a 2021 budget. Tracy?
Okay, thank you so much, Mark. Correspondent Mark Irons reporting for us tonight. And joining me now to talk more about the USCCB General Assembly is Alejandro Bermudez, Executive Director of EWTN's Catholic News Agency, Aussie Group. Alejandro, welcome back. Great to see you.
Great to see you, Tracy. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Alejandro, as we know, these General Assembly meetings are normally a time of coming together for the bishops. How has this virtual aspect, how has it influenced today's proceedings?
Well, it's a really bad situation, Tracy, really bad. If you consider these are probably the worst circumstances living Catholics can remember, the middle of an unprecedented pandemic, which was a significant issue addressed by the president of the USCCB, by Archbishop Gomez. We have our uncertainty of the post-election time. We have violence in our streets, and there is in general a moment of lack of hope. And for all these circumstances, the bishops cannot spend time together physically, which is probably more important than the formal meetings. So I've been following the proceedings and to the fact that they are fairly impersonal, as most of the communications, virtual communications are, is added to the technical difficulties, in which probably the most repeated phrase during the journey has been, "Can you hear me?" Because technical problems appear all the time, but most importantly, they are not able to break bread together to speak about all these issues. So it's a bad time. And everybody knows that at this point.
Yeah, so difficult indeed. And this is also the first meeting following the Holy See's report on Theodore McCarrick. What stands out to you in terms of the bishop's reactions on the report?
Well, as you know, in the summer is when the bishops decided the schedule for this meeting. The November meeting is usually the most important one. And also decided that it was going to be virtual, the way it is right now. So when the McCarrick report came out so close to the meeting, they did not have much time to react, and only very late during the past weekend, the program, the original discussion program, was changed to give an hour that actually ended up eating most of the afternoon to speak about the report. And there is an absolute general consensus, Tracy, that what had happened is a failure in many directions, in many directions. Some of them that has not even been mentioned in the Vatican report. For example, the economic issues, how money played a role in certain authorities permitting Mr. McCarrick to thrive. And number two, the problem of homosexuality in the process of formation and sometimes in the leadership of the Catholic Church. But the consensus is that this cannot happen again, and that everything that can be done from any aspect, from spiritual to economic, any possible measure has to be taken for this long Lent to end at some point.
Well, Alejandro, thank you so much for coming on today. We really do appreciate it. Alejandro Bermudez, Executive Director of EWTN's Catholic News Agency, Aussie Group. Thanks again.
Thank you, Tracy.
Up next, a new series on Catholics in Scandinavia takes us to the birthplace of Christianity in Norway. A Polish cardinal who was recently sanctioned by the Vatican for sexual abuse has died at the age of 97. The Apostolic Nunciature in Poland has announced disciplinary measures against Cardinal Henryk Golbanowicz earlier this month. It followed an investigation into the cardinal and other claims. He was accused of sexually abusing a seminarian in the 1980s and in another case of covering up abuse. And you can read more about the cardinal now by going to our sister publication, CatholicNewsAgency.com. Pope Francis says the poor and disadvantaged are at the heart of the gospel.
Ma non dimenticatevi, I poveri sono al centro del Vangelo.
At his Mass for World Day of the Poor yesterday at the Vatican, the Holy Father says those who do not live to serve others will accomplish very little in life. And the greatest poverty in the world comes from those who do not use their God-given talents and gifts. The Vatican offered COVID tests for those in need, given in a mobile clinic parked outside of St. Peter's Basilica. They also handed out care packages of food items and face masks yesterday. The Vatican has sent 5,000 food packages to families in around 60 parishes in Rome. A special series is airing this week on EWTN. Catholic Scandinavia takes a look at the history of the church across Norway, Sweden, and Denmark and profiles the faithful living there today. EWTN News Rome correspondent Colin Flynn is the producer of the series and brings us a preview from Selja Island, the birthplace of Christianity in Norway.
This is the place where the Catholic Church was born in Norway, so it is truly a sacred space, and people have been experiencing this for 1,000 years.
When you get out here, you have a feeling, a very special feeling. There is something out here which you can't explain.
With a population of just 5 residents, Selja Island off the west coast of Norway is synonymous with Saint Sunniva, the patron saint of Western Norway, with many coming here on pilgrimage each year. Ranhild Hun is a Catholic writer and publisher and lives part-time on the island.
There's only a few Catholics coming here because we have very few Catholics in Norway. So most of the people coming here are Protestants or non-believers. And what we see is that this place does something special to them.
Saint Sunniva was an Irish princess who lived in the 10th century, and when Vikings invaded Ireland, she and around 1,000 others fled and sailed on the North Sea for weeks, eventually landing on Selja Island off the coast of Norway. The King of Norway at the time did not permit the practice of Christianity, and the story goes that, to escape the capture and torture of the king's soldiers, Saint Sunniva and her followers hid in a cave which then collapsed and killed them all. When the king's soldiers arrived at the island, they found no one.
They asked God to save them, and so they went to heaven, and they were not tortured and being killed in a very bad way.
On the far side of the island are the 900-year-old ruins of the country's first monastery. And although the island is small, the easiest way to get to the other side is by boat. Bjorn is a local from the mainland, and in his boat he is taking us around to see Selja Island's ancient ruins.
The whole monastery, the ground area is actually still intact, but some of the walls and the roofs are missing. So some of it has been removed and some has fallen down.
The monastery you see here was built by Benedictine monks in the early 1100s in memory of Saint Sunniva, and it's hard to believe that for 9 centuries this building has stood, a testament to the strength of the faith it represents.
The storms here coming in from the North Sea, just hitting it for 900 years, and still it is standing. You just come and you have your time in solitude with God, and it's a wonderful place to seek God.
On Selja Island, Norway, Colin Flynn, EWTN News Nightly.
And you can watch Catholic Scandinavia all this week on EWTN. It airs at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. Visit EWTN.com for more details. We thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.